What do people living outside Africa imagine it's like to live here? Define Africa. I imagine Cairo is totally different from Johannesburg. When I was a kid, I told my schoolmates in the UK that I lived in a treehouse in the African country I lived in. That almost everyone did except the really rich people. They asked a lot of questions about what treehouses were like. As someone with a South African family, bad electricity. They don't know it's Christmas time until we sing to them. Most people probably envision the savannah and native tribes, along with images of very poor, malnourished children from those charity ads. Poverty and crime. Some people may imagine Africa as a place of poverty, war, disease, and famine, based on media coverage of conflicts, natural disasters, and humanitarian crises in certain regions of the continent. Others may think of Africa as a place of wild animals, safaris, and tribal cultures, based on movies, TV shows, and documentaries that romanticize or exoticize African landscapes and traditions. Depends on which country in Africa. Probably varies a lot. From amazing to horrible. Like any place, I guess. Africa is a massive continent. Some places feature the world's worst conflicts while others have thriving modern cities. Watch clips in Africa from The Amazing Race. That's pretty much the only way the entire continent of Africa minus maybe Egypt is presented to Americans. Everything is grass huts and lions. No cities. No suburbs. Everything is orange and dusty. I imagine it's 50+ countries and living in one of them is not going to be the same as living in another. It must vary from country to country. It's a huge place. Very warm. That it is extremely hot. Every African I know is from countries in West Africa. From what they told me, they have pretty much everything that I have living in the United States, but the people are more traditional and actually care about each other. That being said, I've heard some horror stories that people I know experienced, which is sad for a lot of people, to say the least. Dusty. I've heard there are lots of insects. Like, people just have to deal with flies buzzing around them all day. Wherever they are. Unequal societies. Extreme wealth in front of extreme poverty. Like the Lion King. Tigers everywhere. It probably feels a lot like living in Canada. From what I have seen on documentaries and stuff is that South Africa is pretty much similar to Western countries, especially Cape Town. As are many other bigger cities all over Africa. Much empty space in the Sahara. Much wildlife. Still have native tribes. Big wealth gaps. I imagine it is mostly quite terrible, impoverished, and uneducated. I imagine it as the most beautiful people. In the most beautiful landscapes. With the most oppressive governments. Often due to the lasting effects of colonialism. Shit. Varied. Figured it's similar to Australia. I imagine very diverse environments with cities, but in between lots of natural land ranging from rainforests to plains to desert. Mud huts and scarce water. Honestly the same, just worse sanitation, and less comfy to walk around at night. Well, all I ever see of Africa on TV is starving kids in poor countries, so it's 100% black people. Once some woman gave my one worker like 50 to take down a poster in a month she was hanging up. Referring to him as my good man. Did not have the heart to tell her he probably didn't understand a Falkan word she said. And even if he did, he would not remember it till the next day. Poster probably hang there till the next elections. I imagine Africa is a very large continent with hugely varied levels of development and social structures both between and within the individual nations. So there's no realistic way to expect living, in Africa, would be. Nor to differentiate it from living, in the USA. Due to the media around Africans I had seen, I always thought that there would be quite a miserable atmosphere amongst the people there, which in hindsight is stupid. But after I visited some friends in Uganda, I found that people seem a lot happier in general than where I used to live in London. They're just a lot more grateful for what they have over there. Lion King is a documentary. This is my honest answer, though probably a bit bigoted and wrong. I imagine Africa to be diverse. Metropolitans and suburbs and countrysides. Prosperity and poverty. Famine in some places and abundance in others. I literally have no clue where each would be. I could not tell you if Zimbabwe was in a civil war and had famine and was mostly ritual, or if that was Chad, was the rich country with gold and oil and diamond with friendly welcoming people. I imagine a bunch of African countries with friendly welcoming people who live in a small town and are friends with all their neighbors and help each other. Examples say neighbor Joe has a mango tree. He gives extra mangoes to his neighbors Marcus and Ali. And in return, Ali may have a papaya tree and give papayas to Joe, and Marcus has chickens and gives Joe eggs. I would like to visit this version of Africa if someone could identify which country that would be. And let me know. I also imagine some beautiful hair and clothes and fantastic food, as well as distrust of neighbors and abuse in your own community, but you would turn a cheek. BC tradition. I imagine appreciation for some of the littlest things, example, waking up in the morning, but not doing so for a neighbor, example,